Once upon a time there lived an old man and an old woman in a small house on the edge of the forest. Everything in their life was arguing, only one thing was missing: the old man and the old woman did not have children. Once the old man asked to bake a gingerbread in the shape of a little man. The old woman looked into the barn, and there was almost no flour left. She took a bowl, scrubbed it along the box, swept it along the bottom, and a handful of 2 handfuls of flour gathered. The old woman kneaded the dough with sour cream, and when she was rolling out a gingerbread on the table, she took it and made it in the shape of a little man with arms, legs, with a head, and put it in the oven. After a while, the old woman came up to see if the gingerbread was baked, took it and put it on the window to cool. The gingerbread man cooled down, lay down, but suddenly got up and ran as fast as possible out of the house, from the window to the bench, from the bench to the floor, across the floor and to the doors, jumped over the threshold to the porch, from the porch to the courtyard, from the courtyard to the gate, farther and farther. The old woman called her husband, and they both rushed after him. But it's not so easy to catch the gingerbread man. Now, he has already reached the field where the peasants were threshing their crops. Running past, the gingerbread man shouted at them that he had already run away from the old woman and the old man, and he would easily run away from them too. The peasants heard this and ran after him. But no matter how fast they ran, they could not catch up with him. A gingerbread man ran up to the field where the mowers were mowing the grass. Running past, he shouted to them that he had already run away from the old woman, and from the old man, and from the peasants, and he would easily run away from them too. The mows could not stand such ridicule. Everyone rushed after the gingerbread man. They run as fast as they can, but they cannot catch up. And towards the little man the cow is walking, he shouted to her that he had already run away from the old woman, and from the old man, and from the peasants, and from the mowers, and he would easily run away from her too. The cow got angry, and also rushed after the gingerbread man. Only he cannot catch up. And to meet him a pig. The little man shouted that he had already fled from the old woman, and from the old man, and from the peasants, and from the mowers, and from the cow, and he would easily run away from her too. A pig screeched and ran after. Only she could not catch up, she was too fat. A gingerbread man runs along the road, and a hare meets him. The little man said that he had already run away from the old woman, and from the old man, and from the peasants, and from the mowers, and from the cow, and from the pig, and he would easily run away from him too. The hare heard this and ran after him. Nor can he catch up with the little man, only the hare saw him. A gingerbread man runs, and a wolf meets him. "I will eat you," says. And the little man answered him that he had already fled from the old woman, and from the old man, and from the peasants, and from the mowers, and from the cow, and from the pig, and from the hare, and he would easily run away from him too. The wolf growled and rushed at the gingerbread man, and he dodged and ran as fast as he could. Only the wolf saw him. A gingerbread man is running, and a huge bear is meeting him. His little man was not afraid, but shouted that he had already fled from the old woman, and from the old man, and from the peasants, and from the mowers, and from the cow, and from the pig, and from the hare, and from the wolf, and he would easily run away from him too. A ferocious bear stamped his foot and ran after him. But the bear was too slow to catch up with the fast gingerbread man. A gingerbread man runs, and a fox meets him. The fox was very cunning, but the little man did not know this. Therefore, out of habit, he began to shout that he had already fled from the old woman, and from the old man, and from the peasants, and from the mowers, and from the cow, and from the pig, and from the hare, and from the wolf, and from the bear, which means he will easily run away from her too. The fox listened to the end, and said that she was very old, did not hear anything. She came closer to the little man and asked him to repeat it. Obeyed her silly gingerbread man and began to brag again. The fox listened to the end and said that she still did not hear anything. She came even closer to the little man and asked him to repeat it again. The gingerbread man agreed, and then only he started anew when the fox pounced on him and ate it. And the gingerbread man no longer bragged about.
A long time ago, a beautiful princess lived in a large castle. And then one day her father gave her a golden balloon for her birthday. The princess liked the gift so much that she spent all her time with it. On one of these days, the girl went out to play with a ball in the garden. But having played, she did not notice how she ended up near the pond. The princess threw the ball up and tried to catch it. But he slipped out of her hands, rolled on the grass and fell straight into the pond. The princess tried to get the ball, but it was at the very bottom. Then the girl had no choice but to sit by the pond and cry bitterly. But then a noise was heard from the grass. The princess looked back and saw a frog in front of her. She looked at the girl and asked why the princess was crying. The girl was very surprised to see a talking frog and told her how she dropped the ball into the water. The frog listened attentively, jumped around the pond and invited the girl to return the ball. But in return she asked to fulfill one request to make friends with the frog and take her to the palace. After a short thought, the princess agreed. Then the frog jumped into the water and disappeared from sight. Soon she appeared with a golden ball and threw it to the princess. Having received her gift back, the princess happily ran to the palace. Then the frog reminded the girl of their agreement. But the princess just laughed and said that such an ugly frog could not live in a palace. So, the girl left the frog and returned to the castle. In the evening, the king, queen and princess gathered for dinner. But as soon as they started eating, they heard a knock at the door. Then the butler entered the room and announced that a frog was sitting at the threshold. She asks permission to enter and claims that she was invited by the princess. The king looked sternly at his daughter. And the princess told him about everything that happened in the morning by the pond. The father thought about it, and then said that if the princess promised something, she should keep her word. Then the king ordered the butler to let the frog in. The door opened and a small frog entered the castle. In several leaps, she found herself at the table. The frog then bowed to the king and thanked him for allowing her to enter. After that, the frog jumped to the princess's plate. The king ordered a saucer to be brought to the guest. But the frog stopped him and said that he could eat from the princess's plate. The girl was beside herself with rage. But she didn't show it, hoping that after supper the frog would leave the palace. However, when the princess got up from the table, the frog followed her. And after a while, the guest wanted to sleep. The princess offered her a guest room. But the frog said that it wants to sleep in the girl's bed. And the princess, fearing to disappoint her father, agreed. Then the frog jumped onto the king's bed and rested its head on the soft pillow. And the princess had to lie down next to her. In the morning, the frog woke the girl up and said that she had a last wish, after which she would definitely leave. And the heart of the princess was filled with hope. The frog paused, looked into the girl's eyes, and then asked to kiss her frog lips. The princess jumped out of bed in a rage and flatly refused to kiss the nasty frog. And the guest, hearing this, wept bitterly. Suddenly the princess felt so sorry for the poor frog that she had no choice but to kiss her. As soon as the princess did this, a bright light lit up the room. A moment later, when the light went out, in front of her was no longer a frog, but a handsome prince. He said that once an evil witch put a curse on him. And to break the spell, he needed to spend the day with the princess and get a kiss from her. The astonished princess was happy. They went to the king together and then got married. And they lived happily ever after. And the princess never again judged people by their appearance.